And I'm going to give you 37 seconds to, you're all going to tell me one thing about what you see. And it is probably the best thing you might be able to do for visitors is give them the experience of being here. I mean, yes, it's going to be summer soon, springtime's here, but in September when this exhibit is still here and it's really cold and nasty out here, you're not going to find a better place in Berkshire trying to be sitting. So I'm going to give you a minute just to look around. You are going to tell me one thing that you're seeing. And it could be about a specific butterfly, it could be about an activity you're seeing, it could be about the plants. Now shut up. All right, that's enough. All right, that's it.
I think a lot of the moths are on the ceiling and on the wall.
You think a lot of the moths are sitting on the ceiling?
Like just hanging out instead of flying around.
I don't see a single moth.
All the butterflies?
Those, okay, so you see a lot sitting on the ceiling. Okay, next.
Some of them rest open and others have their wings shut.
Excellent. How about you? She took you. All right, we'll come back. Come with another one. Yes.
They're kind of in clumps.
They're not attracted to the lights.
Not attracted to the lights. Cool.
It's more of a question. I wonder if they're feeding on these flowers here.
You might have to
Are these
look
specific
carefully.
to give them something to eat?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you feed them? Do you give them sugar water like you give the bees?
Both.
Oh.
Yep. Good. Very good. Let's start up here.
Nobody seems interested in that banana right there.
I wonder
I can
why.
see why.
You mean it looks a little moldy?
Yeah,
You know, moldy fruit is actually really good.
that's what I thought, but nobody seems interested in it.
Well,
They
what
must
could
not
it
be
be?
hungry.
It could be that, or somebody sitting next to it.
Oh.
So what do you think?
It seems like more of the tropical butterflies are flying.
More like the tropical ones are flying as opposed to the non-tropical ones?
Yeah, but I could be wrong.
We all could be wrong, but we're all correct. How about you?
When I first walked in, I noticed that there was a butterfly on the wall, and then there was another butterfly hanging from that butterfly.
And you turned away, I hope. Good. How about you?
Lots of flowers and zebras.
And the zebras, yeah, exactly.
Nobody's really sitting on, nobody's really eating, like you said, on the golden fruit or even on the sugar water.
So, how do you explain that? In fact, take a look up here right now. So as soon as you say that, here are two dramatically different butterflies. Can everybody see these two that are sitting up here? This dark one on the top, and this is one of the great stories to me and therefore to you. Here is a local butterfly, this top one. This is called a mourning cloak, M-O-U-R-N, as if it's in mourning. It's somber colors. That's where it gets its name. And this one underneath is one of the tropical clearwings. You can read a newspaper behind it because it doesn't have any scales on its wings. And what does every mother tell their kid who's out trying to catch a butterfly when they're 4 years old? Don't grab them, how come? Because you get this powder and they won't be able to fly. There's two of them now, a group of butterflies who have evolved scaleless wings. Don't do it, but I promise you, if we took that mourning cloak and rubbed all the scales off, it would still fly. Has not much to do with flying. So why do butterflies have scales? Why do most of them? Protected from what?
Water.
From water.
Rain.
Ooh, that's a brilliant suggestion. And why not? Protection is a big deal. So there is mechanical protection. So from raindrops and things. Normally, and maybe next week, Scott, you can put our little rain system in here.
It's coming.
Have that done right away. Incidentally. What would you think would happen if it started raining here? What would these butterflies be doing? What would you imagine? What's that?
I think they would close their wings,
Close the wings and do what? Just sit up there and say,
go in the plant.
hide underneath the plants,
Yeah.
hide underneath something, they get above the system, who knows? So they can't avoid it too, but why not? Why not have a little protection from that, physical protection? What else do scales and butterflies do? I mean, how do you know that heliconia that's flying
Color.
behind here?
Color.
We would imagine that butterflies can see color because they're day flying, they're day active, and they are very colorful, like this, what's the name of that one? It's in there, you're gonna have to learn the names of these.
Birdwing?
This is the bird, excuse me, yes, the birdwing, Chorus birdwing. This is, oops, that one there, going up towards the, oh, did you see that color change?
Yeah.
Watch when it hits, look at that. Those colors are visible because obviously the light is shining on them. We are visual-oriented animals. So are their main predators, like birds, but other things as well. These colors change. Without the light, it just looks like a dark black butterfly. Watch when it goes in towards the light. Or if you can see its big yellow abdomen underneath. Look at those colors. Can you see the iridescent greens? So the colors, the scales provide color, which is important for camouflage. Or what's the opposite of camouflage?
Display.
Warning colorations, too. Opposite of camouflage is warning. Don't try and eat me because I'm toxic. And most of these butterflies in here are toxic. So if you're here extra hours and they're not giving you lunch, don't eat the butterflies because you're not going to be happy about it. And virtually every one of these, including the zebra longwings, the black ones with the yellow stripe right over our heads now, that is a butterfly that gets into the United States. You can see it from about Georgia south, even the Carolinas south, and then very common in the tropics. And again, that is the longest lived butterfly in the world. It's got the longest longevity known, that particular one right there. And it is a incredibly toxic butterfly. Look at how slow it flies. In fact, look at how slow most of these things fly. You would think, what an easy thing to get. If I was a bird, bam, I can nail these fast. Except they're incredibly toxic. And the colors on their wings help them, on the scales, help them sort of warn predators. But also, you said something else. You can attract a mate with those colors. Nobody knows if the behavior of these, okay, take a look at, so here is a male chasing a female. Can you see the size difference between those two? So she's just landing on a flower, and what did she do there? She got a little nectar. So there she goes, really big, and you guys will probably recognize individual butterflies in here. You're gonna say, all right, look at this female, and in a second, this male, who's much smaller and is really cruising around looking for a female right here. Here he is, zeroing in. You will be able to tell individual butterflies, and people are going to be flabbergasted that you know Fred or Susie or whatever you want to name them. Don't name the butterflies, but you will have to learn them sooner or later. You will learn individual behaviors on these.
Are the males usually smaller than the females?
In most species, not all, but in most species, males are smaller than females, exactly. And watching their behaviors, just finally, they are coming in here and nectaring. Scott, what is the light regime here? What's your day length?
I didn't even measure it yet, I don't.
Not so much brightness, but when do you turn them off and on? How many hours of light?
It's still developing.
Oh, you're still doing it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, how many hours of daylight is there in the equator, in the tropics?
12.
Hence the name, equator. Equal day and equal night. 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night, which is where most of these butterflies live. Within a few degrees, maybe 15 degrees of the equator. So somewhere in that range is probably going to be optimal for them. Our butterflies up here, what's the longest day of the year coming up?
Solstice,
Which is when?
21st,
Of
June.
June, exactly. We're going to have about 15 and a half hours of daylight. Almost 16. 4 hours more of day length than they do in the tropics. And so, not a surprise, a lot of butterflies have evolved to live up in the temperate zones, because in the summer, there's a lot more light. And the more light you have, the more flowers you can get to, the more nectaring you can do, the more eggs you can lay, the more everything that's around here. And so Scott and John and Maria have to deal with trying to keep all the butterflies in here happy, because we've got temperate ones, we've got tropical ones, and they're all doing their things. Look at the ones, those 2 or 3, 4 of them now, right below the lights. These lights putting out any heat?
Yeah.
The lights themselves aren't too much. Most of the heat is up above in those cooling fins.
Yeah.
Fins.
So, what do you think those butterflies are doing in the light?
Warming up.
Basking, exactly. Now, warming up is almost certainly it. And when we see light, you know, we can see a visible spectrum of light. But you all know that there's ultraviolet light, infrared lights that we can't see. Butterflies can see in those ranges. And so when they look at a flower that's hanging up here, they may see something dramatically different from what we see. They actually may see all these lines and patterns in the blossoms that we just don't see at all. And those same colors are on the butterfly scales that we can't see. But, you should come in sometime with a black light and just a little portable one and see what some of these things really look like. That would actually be neat. Might even be fun for these guys to have one in case a butterfly is sitting there. Put it right on this, this bird wing. Come on up, stand up here so you can see these better. Can you see on this giant bird wing how the tips of the antennas are swollen a little bit? So they get thicker towards the tips. If we get another look at certainly our local butterflies like the morning cloak, there's one basking in the light up there now. You can see that those tips actually are really swollen into bulbs. So they probably will suggest you don't pick up butterflies all that often. But what kind of an animal is a butterfly in the animal world? It's an insect. And what does everybody know insects have? What are their standard body parts?
Legs on.
Head, thorax, and abdomen. How many legs?
6.
Find a butterfly and count its legs, and I'm going to guarantee that 90% of them in here, 98% of them in here only have 4 legs. How's that possible? It's just not right.
The wings are legs, aren't
The
they?
wings are not. That's a very good guess, though. Come and sit. Don't get hit in the head with it. They're in most cases, these butterflies have modified front legs that are so small they put them right up next to their cheeks. And they're used as sensory organs.
That's the ones that will curl down.
They don't curl down. No, they will tap on a leaf. Yep, they're very short and straight. The curling, which is fun, is watch, as soon as it lands, it will start to uncurl its proboscis. And if you get a big one up here, come on up a little closer so you can see a little bit better for everybody. Or find your own little juice bar. There, look at his proboscis. Is completely open, it's somewhat curved, and you see how it's probing into that sponge.
Yeah.
It's skinnier than all the other legs, but that's just the proboscis, and it's when they're not using it, it's curled up under their face. Nobody knows, Scott, anymore what a watch spring is, so I don't know what we use for the simile, but anyway, that's what it is. So we've got basking butterflies in the light. We have resting butterflies up on the top. But somebody said the same important thing, I think it was Scott just a minute ago. Most of the heat, where does heat go in a room?
Up.
Yeah. So should it be a surprise that tropical butterflies like to be up where it's a little warm? So they've got fans in here that are used to circulate the air in here to try and get warm temperatures down low where the people are. But don't ignore the chance of seeing these. And I think it was one of you two back there said, look at these butterflies sitting up here. Look at the long wing. How does it sit when it's resting? Its wings are completely exposed. And look at the, whatever that is, next to it. That's a bird wing next to it, and I don't know what the small one is from this angle. They fold their wings in the back. Some people used to say, look at this because we look at that for feeding. Some people used to think, well, moths always sit with their wings out and butterflies with their wings over their back. It's variable all over the place. Do you guys have moths in here? You have some cecropias?
We have no cecropias there. We have 2 atlas moths in here.
2 atlas. Fine ones. They are fabulous, big, giant. They're almost the size
Just
of
come
these
grab a
birds.
seat and I'll get you a manual and everything later.
Oh, I thought she's like,
Oh, they're cool.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Good.
Does a moth know when it's night? I mean,
Oh.
let's say you left these lights on 24 hours.
They do have, come on over here, they do have a built-in system. Look at that giant moth up on the wall. Come way over here so you can see it. Wow. Not only is this, I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I see it.
What kind of a moth is that?
It's called an atlas moth.
Okay.
And it is one of the largest moths in the world. And I don't know how we're going to try this, but you got to try this. Come over here where you get a good look at the wings at some point. And I want you to make a little V or a little space in your fingers. And you see the tips of the wings, how they sort of have a little curve to the tips, the front wings? I want you to just isolate that tip of the wing, all that yellowish part, with your hand and tell me what you see. You've got to get right in there to really see this this thing. We got to get a couple of dead ones.
It's like the head of a snake.
It's exactly what it is. It is a snake mimic. So even from back here I can see it. If you just cut that out, it is, and with scales that look like a snake scale, it looks like an eye, and it looks like a potential tongue coming out. This is a moth that sits in the tropics, and when their wings are closed, or even open like this, the first thing that a predator might see is a snake's head, which is a good suggestion to get the heck out of town, because you might die. So people move, if you've seen it, get out of the way so other people can get in there, but that atlas moth is a wonderful, wonderful exhibit animal. And it's nice when they just sit still. Those are actually transparent spots. There's no scales there, which of course makes them a little difficult to fly. So if you stand back and look at, try and follow a butterfly that's flying. Anyway, like this rice paper one right above us here, or Maria's got a different common name for it. I learned it as rice paper, so you'll have to learn the local one here. Anyway, just watch how these things flap and glide a little bit. They're not that easy to follow, even though they're slow-moving animals. And imagine the dappled sunlight, especially if they go through the lights here. They appear and sort of momentarily disappear. These are all methods of trying to survive, and they're not easy to see except when you get them piled into an exhibit like this. Somebody's going to ask Scott, I'm sure, how many butterflies are in here?
A little over 200 right now.
200. And maybe about 10 or 15 species? 10 species at least?
Closer to 15.
Closer to 15, exactly. Now, here's a beautiful clear wing.
They call those glass wings too?
Glass wings is another, yep, or clear wings, yep. And there's that one just landed on a very neat butterfly called a malachite. You see how green that is? On the fern leaf? That malachite is also actually native to southeastern United States, but very abundant in the American tropics. A lot of people will easily see the big giant butterflies. They'll see them on the roof. Your job is to show them the subtle stuff. How do you find a butterfly sitting in these leaves? Find one nectaring. Show them how they do that stuff. You can easily, people can see these parts. And of course, I'm sure Maria and Scott, John have already told you, butterflies will land on the floors, they'll land on people. And have you done the paintbrush method yet? Have you guys learned that?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the easiest way to get things moving. As you all know, in fact, if you look at those nectaring over here, many times, if you're in here and you're perspiring, they won't let you do this, but get a little bit of perspiration on your fingertip.
They like the saltiness, right?
They're getting salts and other things, and all you have to do is push your hand onto them. And you can often will see a proboscis. Yep, not perspiring enough. They will often sit there. You can actually show them a proboscis coming out, feeding on salts and other things that are on your hands. So this is a really spectacular opportunity for people to see things that they're not going to. First of all, tropical species. Second of all, never have a concentration of butterflies like this. Even when we do our counts, we do not get 200 butterflies per room. And you can see them doing a lot of their behaviors. There are males and females in here, as I said before, and you saw those male and female birdwing chasing each other. But there's no host plants. When we use the term host plant, it is specifically for egg laying. So a host plant is a particular kind of plant that a species of butterfly or moth has evolved to utilize for the caterpillars.
Not necessarily what they would eat.
They will nectar almost anything, but take a look at some differences here. So here is, here's a clearwing sitting on a, I think this is lantana. And then whatever petunia thing this is. Look at the difference in these flowers. Big, giant, purple, flat petals, big landing strip, really tiny blossoms in the middle of these things. Flowers and insects have co-evolved for their mutual benefit. And why in the world do butterflies even visit flowers? What are they after? So 99% of it is, the answer is nectar. 1% of it is proteins. Some butterflies, especially the tropical ones like the heliconias, that orange and black one who go to the morning cloak, look at the beautiful one. That heliconia will actually put its proboscis into the anthers of the flower and get pollen, and will actually be able to absorb protein from the pollen. And especially female butterflies will eat more than just nectar. Sort of like having monster drinks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're not going to get a lot out of it. You'll be really wild for a few hours and then you crash. So they need more, most of them need more than that, except for the fact that most of the butterflies don't live very long, so they can handle it and then die. But some of these, like the heliconias, will get other things besides nectar from the honeybees. And nectar is just a sugar source that has no function for the plant, except to attract and reward a pollinator. And many plants are pollinated by butterflies. And butterfly flowers tend to have these big, flat landing pads for big flowers, but even these vervains and these little ones with the blue blossoms here, these deeper blue blossoms, have such good nectar quality that people who have raised butterflies over the years and have watched them in nature find that these plants are especially good sources, and many butterflies, even the big ones, will try. And some of these will hover in front of a flower like a hummingbird, but they're not really good at hovering. You know, hummingbirds' wings go about 300 or 400 beats, about 150 beats a second. Butterflies like 20 or 30. The hovering is not really, they're not that good at it. So they will nectar briefly. So there's always going to be butterflies in flight. It's going to be on the ground. They're going to be sitting around. And the nice thing about sitting around, and I think I don't know how much longer I'm going to bore you with this stuff, but look at the two big butterflies up on the ceiling there. What do you notice on the underside? Say it again? Yeah, those eye spots. And many of our butterflies have those eye spots. This particular one, these are called owl butterflies. I wonder why. Because when they have two wings open, they look like owls. And they do look like, in fact, they're the exact size of many owl eyes. And so imagine some lizard or some other potential predator crawling up a tree and all of a sudden seeing an owl. Likely they're going to scoot back down and disappear. So those are good potential ones. Those are related to the giant morphos, which have 4 big eye spots. 4, not as obvious that, but 4 eye spots. Somebody's got to find, look around for a morpho.
We also have in the last gallery, there's the morphos on the wall with a mirror behind it, and you
Oh,
can
yes.
see you can see what he's talking about there.
All right, here's a morpho here. Come on back here. So right on this wall, and just look at, you'll see that the eye spots are not quite as obvious on there, and there's 4 of them about the same size. So take a peek in and let other folks get in there to be able to tell the difference. The morphos are clearly the most spectacular that we have here. I guarantee they don't want you to go and steer one up just so somebody can see one fly. They will fly on their own.
Which one's a morpho?
Right here.
Okay.
So look at that color. Oh,
That's incredible.
and it is incredible. And that coloration makes them really tough to follow in the tropics. And Scott's been down in there to the Amazon, and these animals do have predators. In particular, we found a pile of wings underneath a giant spider web. This golden orb weaver has a web, without exaggeration, that would run from that wall to that wall. And they seem to be particularly good at attracting and catching morpho butterflies, and the wings have no nutritional value. So birds, bats, whatever catches a moth or a butterfly, the first thing to do is chew the wings off and spit them out because they're useless. But what you really want is that nice, big, juicy abdomen where all the good stuff is. And well, that is a great question. I don't know how it is that they can avoid almost anything else, but they fly right into these webs. And these webs are massive. You go out at night, you can get your face shrink wrapped when you walk through these things. And the spiders are, with their legs, they're about this big. They're not that big. Dinky little males, exactly.
Abdomen's less poisonous than the wing.
It's not so much toxic, there's just not a lot in a wing. The veins of a wing, you can look into the scopes, really just for pumping fluids. And they're stiff wings, and there's muscles attached to them. So there's just, it's like crust on a bread to most kids. Not very appealing. The abdomen is where all the protein is for predators. Butterflies, oh sorry.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit then about the wings and how they've adapted?
I can try.
So that like if a bird bites the wing, like it's a deterrent to having the bird bite the body.
Well, that's a very good point. And oftentimes, even around here, when we're doing our butterfly counts and finding butterflies outdoors, you will often see them with a perfect good triangle bite out of their wing because it's where a bird grabbed them. They weren't necessarily going to eat it, but when you grab a butterfly, it's mostly wing. So you'll see these bite marks taken right out of them, and that is the first indication that this thing might be toxic. So you've all heard the standard stories about monarch butterflies and birds. A guy at Amherst College, a guy named Lincoln Brower, whose name is on one of the exhibits here, has studied monarch butterflies for most of his career. And when he was at Amherst College, he got a bunch of, he basically borrowed a bunch of brand new hatched blue jays and brought them up onto his aviary on top of Amherst College Science Building and grew them, fed them. They do well in captivity. They're fine and dandy. They're happy. He threw in anything, dog food, caterpillars, worms, anything, and would love them. They eat, they grow, they're happy, bounce all around the place. And he would put the food on a lazy Susan so that they could sort of pick and choose. And he'd roll this lazy Susan, and here's some sunflower seeds, or here's some earthworms, or here's some blah, 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 blah. Oh, love them, love them, love them. They get used to it. And then one day he put in a monarch butterfly, and what did the birds do? They went for it, said, oh boy, more food, eat it, barf their brains out. And I mean the only photograph ever I've seen of upchucking birds, front cover of Scientific American magazine in 1969, of a barfing blue jay, and it was indicative of monarchs being toxic. So to be perfectly, let me finish this story, because what's the butterfly everybody assumes, but not you guys anymore, is the perfect Batesian mimic of the monarch butterfly. And right here with Viceroy, orange and black, just like these. There's a great exhibit in there. In fact, you've got some in your Riker mounts of some Viceroys. They've got a black line in there. We have Viceroys around here, we've got monarchs around here, and Lincoln Brower wrote the standard in every textbook. Every kid that walks in here is going to say, I know all about monarch butterflies and the Viceroys are mimicking them so that, in fact, when Lincoln Brower then put a Viceroy butterfly in, the blue jays wouldn't touch it. And so this idea of mimicry was first studied with butterflies in the tropics. And that heliconia that's still sitting under the lights up there on that Boston fern next to the mourning cloak is one of about 30 species that look nearly identical. And they look a lot like another butterfly that is so incredibly toxic that a guy named William Bates went up the Amazon River and spent, and Wallace, a buddy named Alfred Wallace, went up to the Amazon and studied butterflies and developed this hypothesis that is now the theory, which is very close to being biological law, that palatable, tasty bugs, tasty butterflies, can, over time, through natural selection, take on the appearance of nasty tasting butterflies. This became known and is still known as Batesian mimicry, and Lincoln Brower said, aha, I've got it with these. They tried a monarch, barfed their brains out, put in a Viceroy, won't touch it, and everything was fine and dandy until somebody tested the Viceroy butterflies first and found out they're just as toxic. It's not, every textbook in the country has this as an example. It's not a bad thing because there's another type of mimicry. A guy named Mueller went to the Amazon and studied all the heliconias and said, how come all the heliconias look alike? They're all toxic. And he said they're all sort of mimicking each other, even though they're all related. So that's now Muellerian mimicry as opposed to Batesian mimicry. It's still mimicry, and it's still totally cool. But this is a place that you guys are going to spend a lot of time in here. I hope you get to know individual butterflies. You're going to have to keep checking with John and Scott and Maria of who's new in here. I don't know how often you're going to have to replace butterflies. It could be weeks or months before you have to even do anything because many of these will last long. If you see a dead butterfly, my suggestion, based on what their protocol is, because they have to be, this is a highly regulated event here. This structure, Scott was telling me how much stuff they had to go through to make this happen. Some of these butterflies, all these butterflies, but most of these are not native, and the last thing you want is a non-native species getting out. So the nice thing is you're in a closed space in a building in downtown Pittsfield. The likelihood is small, but it's enough there that they have to comply with a lot of regulations.